I have to sort this out on my own. Without the council. And without you. Stay here any longer. Not now. I have to sort this out on my own. Without the council. And without you. Stay here any longer. Not now. I have to sort this out on my own. Without the council. And without you. Stay here any longer. Not now. I have to sort this out on my own. Without the council. And without you. I have to sort this out on my own. Without the council. And without you.
Seen for generations, a Dyad in the Force.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Dyad in the Force, episode 50. What's up to everybody in the chat? Captain Boomerang Sokka, the Soda Man, Ace Bronx, Archive Redacted, St. Pat, DePaul, what's up DePaul? Second half of Conspiracy Cantina. We do have some special guests upcoming. We'll introduce them in a moment. But first, we have to get through some announcements. So just to kind of pay the bills, you know, gonna have to shout it out. Partnered with Respawn. If you ever need to upgrade your setup, desks, monitor arms, chairs, the chairs we got going on, go to respawnproducts.com. Use the code element7, 5% off your order. It stacks on all of the sales that they have going on. They're in the final stages of the October sale, so get that stuff. Also, level up lightsaber. Better than a stick. We have ours over here. You can't see mine, but Master Allen's a cool dude. Goes live. He goes live and packs your orders sometimes. He's the most transparent lightsaber reseller that I've ever worked with. So yeah, seventhelement.net/lightsabers. Go get yours. And the sound still... Oh, okay. Yes. Sorry, wrong mic was selected. Thank you, Brooke, for saying that. Did you guys get all of that, though? Is Choco muted? What is going on up in here?
I don't have the wrong mic selected. I normally do, so I'm happy that it finally happened to someone else.
All right. Let's do this over again. Let's start from scratch. We'll do this live again. You can see it on the screen, guys. I don't have to do it over again. Use code element7 if you want some chairs, desks, or monitor arms. Get yourself some upgrades, and then level up lightsaber that's better than a stick. seventhelement.net/lightsabers. Get yours today. Introducing our special guests. First up, we have xcoregamerskillz, and then we have Luke from the Podwan's podcast. Xcore, let's start with you. Introduce yourself. Where can people find you? What kind of content you create? And
I kind of love that on the screen we are only displaying his core name.
Yes. What's up, Core?
Not too much. I am xcoregamerskillz literally everywhere. You can mostly find me on TikTok and bi-weekly with my Dyad Jedi Master Paul over on Conspiracy Cantina here on YouTube. We recently had a really good tribute episode to my dad, featuring dads of Star Wars, and we had some awesome dads from the Star Wars community. Jay Skywalker guy had joined us, Ghostface Kai, and we had everybody's favorite space mom, Amber, come on and join us.
Nice.
Because Amber's content.
I love Amber.
So mostly I talk themes, lore. I do mostly Star Wars content, but I do a little bit of everything. I'll talk about current events or Marvel fandom or movies, and Wheel of Time hype because that's like 3 weeks away. So
right on. And Luke, same thing. Introduce yourself.
Hey guys, I am one half of the Podwan's podcast, where we're going through right now a rewatch of the Clone Wars, and we've had Choco on recently for Ryloth, which was an amazing episode. And I know I've got X-Core coming on here pretty soon. But where you can find us is at the Podwan's podcast on TikTok, Podwan's on Twitter, and then at the Podwan's Pod on Instagram. Basically, all our content is recaps of what we did on the show last week. Funny things here and there, and then shooting down sequel haters and gatekeepers. That's basically the content that we do. But
Nice.
that's where you can find us.
Hopefully when you guys do the voices Destiny and Sacrifice arc, I can get on that, because that is my favorite arc now. It used to be
More than welcome to.
Awesome. I can't wait. Thank you to the both of you for coming on today. This is a very special episode. As the news cycle kind of slowly, tapers down, I guess, until we get to the Investors Day, I wanted to kind of shift focus, pivot for Dyad in the Forest. We're usually covering, time-sensitive material, but in this case, I wanted to talk about Force lore. And me and Choco have proselytized about Force lore for months, going on maybe over a year now, and so this episode is for you.
It's actually
guys.
how we met.
Yes.
That was episode 3 of either 3 or 4 of the High Ground. It was just me reaching out to Element saying, let's talk about balance in the Force and record it and whatever.
And that's
It's fun.
That's actually how we discovered the Dyad too, because I think he prefaced that episode with I think we disagree on this, but let's talk about it, and then we ended up lining up on multiple levels. But of course, we've done this before, and so this episode is about you guys and kind of where you're at in terms of the Force lore that we're going to discuss. So let's start with the Force lore, Legends versus canon. And Choco, I'll let you kind of sum up the Force lore in Legends, and I'll chime in whenever I feel like it. But
yeah, I mean, just in general, it was wild. No, it just, I mean, any storytelling, especially if you're a fan of anime, has power creep, right? And so when you are looking at the Force lore that was happening, they had to continually expand, and the films did this themselves, right? A New Hope was very little Force usage. He blocked the shots, and he could make the shot with the X-wing. Next movie can move the lightsaber with his mind, and we just kind of kept going and going. Now, there was a lot of stuff that happened in Legends, oh my goodness. I think the wildest ability, well, I mean, they could also teleport objects at will, or create force storms large enough to destroy planets, or open up wormholes. They could. Jason Solo would flow walk a lot, which is basically you send your essence back in time as long as you know where you want to go, and so you can just go and watch events that happened at some point in the past. You can also flow walk forward in time, but it was a little bit more nebulous, so you can try and prevent futures from happening and stuff like that. Yeah, it got pretty wild.
yeah, it did.
I mean, you could when I believe both Luke and Jason had achieved oneness, so they just literally became Super Saiyans. You become one with the Force, but retain your physical body, and you start glowing. It's actually more akin to supersonic.
Yeah. And then,
Yeah, imagine Sonic's ult on Smash Brothers, and that's what it is.
And the interesting part about the Force in Legends was it did essentially become like a catch-up game to Dragon Ball. They had their Deus Ex Machina, and now they needed to kind of elevate each power and technique to where it could measure up to the scale with which Dragon Ball had like their versus battles and stuff, and now people could participate in those versus battles with Jedi. Because then we had like Obi-Wan versus Kakashi.
Yeah.
But yeah, Luke, X-Core, we'll start with Luke. What are your main thoughts on like the difference between Legends and Canon, and what do you prefer more?
To be honest, right off the bat, like Force ability in Legends is like beyond me, if I'm gonna be honest. Like it's like a lot of the things like, oh, like a Dark Sith could literally like destroy a planet by engulfing the entire Force. Like I was like, okay, that's too much for me. So like the Force as it is right now with what we're getting in the High Republic and like what we know in canon wise is like more of my style. Like Avar Chris being able to hear, like see the Force as like notes or music. Elzar being able to see like water and rushes of stuff. Just like that type of stuff is more appealing to me because it's like what Choco was talking about was just crazy. Just like Luke being able to like, okay, I'm not gonna have to die. I'm just gonna be like a homing, like I can do anything, move at the speed of sound and just be like insane. But like I like that it's a little bit more controlled. Like you know where the limits are a little bit in canon. Whereas Legends, because they are legend, they've never been part of the canon. I cannot stress that enough. Like you can do whatever you want. It's kind of like what they did with Visions. Like there are no limits. You can do whatever you want. And that might be why people enjoy Legends a lot more than canon Force-wise. But I'm more aligned with the canon side of it.
What about you, Core?
I was never a huge Legends reader, to be honest with you, especially when I found out that like George Lucas had nothing to do with them. I was like, well, okay. I like some of the stuff that they did with looking into what's dark side and what's light side, but like a sense, which is sort of why I really do enjoy what Luke said about the High Republic. Especially one of my favorite parts is in Light of the Jedi when they're trying to move the tank of Tabanagas, and all of a sudden like they just feel Yoda from like wherever he is in the galaxy and lending them strength to the Force. I'm like, yeah, see, this is what I'm talking about.
I just see Yoda like over, because I think at that time, right, the High Republic Adventures puts him on Trimand during the Great Disaster.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we don't have a depiction as to how far away that is, but I just picture him on Trimand, and he's got all of his Padawans around him, and like they're all chilling, and suddenly he feels Avar's signal from like across the expanse, and he's like looking, and then goes, "Oh, found someone you have."
Yeah.
My people, they need me.
And it's were you done, Core? I'm sorry if I interrupted.
Yeah, no, I just like I was saying, I like how you still have, especially with the High Republic, you still have the limitlessness of the Force. It's just in a way that actually makes sense now.
Yeah. Shout out to Lord Dagovere in the chat. Let's go.
Let's go.
Mabe in the chat. Am I the only girl here? Hopefully not. We got some family members in here that are. I think Brooke is here as well.
Yep.
Yeah, Brooke popped in, and That's it.
If you see the hidden message in chat, deploy the likes. Absolutely, guys. If you haven't liked the video yet, please like the video. It helps everyone come watch the show. And if you watch any of these fine folks, Conspiracy Cantina, Podwan's podcast, whenever you tune in, make sure to like the video so people find their streams. I'm of the same mindset as pretty much everyone here. Legends had no like arbiter for balance, as ironic as that sounds. The upper limits of the Force felt like Legends powers was a way to kind of assuage a god complex in a way. And you know, Palpatine creating force storms that tore the fabric of reality. When people kind of talk about the sequels and talk about breaking the rules of the Force, breaking established lore, and I'm just like, you can't possibly break the established lore of Legends without just not being Star Wars anymore, you know? And I just love how, like, canon Force lore has forced people to think about balance in the Force, the effects of the dark side, and whether or not things are possible. Because Core is correct, nothing is impossible with the Force, but is it possible without consequence? And you have to think about, you know, actions and consequences and cause and effect and all that good stuff. So, like, canon with the story group did a really great job of kind of honing things in and reining things in so that you didn't have Sith 5,000 years before Force Ghost was discovered becoming Force Ghosts. And there was a certain amount of inconsistency in Legends that just didn't make sense.
One thing I do miss, though, is the Stealth X. I love Stealth X's so much. Imagine an X-Wing, but it's all blacked out, and it's a little smaller. It's smaller. It's a little bit more lightweight. It's more nimble, and they do that because they were meant specifically for Jedi to fly. So rather than putting in sensors and things like that, they would use the Force, and part of it, and they would. For their communications array and stuff like that, they had it, but they would leave it turned off so that you couldn't track it, because they would communicate with each other through sharing emotions through the Force. And they would use what are they called? They had these specific bombs that they would use, but they would grab them with the Force, and like they didn't launch out. They would use the Force to do. I thought that was really cool. Just as a concept, because now it's a ship that, like, they can't track. If you even see it out of a viewport, it's just black against space, so you don't see it. And you know, so that, like, sometimes that there was some really tasteful stuff that was really cool, but then at the same time you also have people using like Iceman's abilities and freezing people with the Force, like making them freeze out of cold and stuff, and or igniting them on fire. You're like, I don't understand it, but whatever.
So Choco, like, it's kind of like, was there ever, because kind of getting back to like Republic, you know how they have to activate, they can't activate the weapons without using their lightsabers, right? Was there anything Legends wise that was somewhat similar to that, when like you couldn't, you know, like use the ship, start the ship without a lightsaber, or being able to use the Force? Were there any like vehicles that were like just for Force users?
No, not really. Even the Stealth X's could be piloted by other people. I like Jagged Fell flew one just because it looks intimidating, just to freak people out. But nothing like that I can think of personally. I really did love that in Light of the Jedi, of you had to really think about your actions before you did it. Like, you couldn't just be weapons free out of the gate.
And I do want to, and I cautiously bring up this topic of healing. and how everyone is suddenly like gung-ho about how much it breaks the Force, or Anakin's prophecy, but like that was so rampant in Legends. Like people killed each other and revived each other on the daily. And
They had a whole healing corps. Like,
yeah,
there's a Jedi healing corps.
and
One woman does it and everybody loses their minds.
right.
Like, my God.
And I bring up Crate so many times when he kills Cade and revives him. He's like, "Are you gonna turn yet?" And then Cade's like, "Nah, bitch."
I mean, that's all Plagueis did. Is like when he got caught venomous, he would just kill him and bring him back over and over and over again for science. It was kind of a dick move. I feel bad for him.
Science.
That book is by far one of my favorite books. Of like, that's probably the one Legends material that I do know really well, is that story, because it's like it interconnects with the movies at the time very well, but now it's just like half of that's gone. Like that doesn't work. That doesn't work. But,
yeah, all the Dooku stuff doesn't work. None of the politics or the Naboo stuff works, or the Maul stuff. But the concept of the Dyad works perfectly. Where
absolutely, it does.
He's like, all right, me and Palpatine, we're gonna be done with this rule of two stuff. We're just gonna keep each other alive, pass life back and forth between each other. And you're like, that sounds like that. A weak version, but yeah,
it makes sense. It all kind of like, and that's what I love about the story group now, is that they are aware of all of these things, and they're not just like willy-nilly changing things. They're not rewriting things. And some people say that like the change to the doctrine of the Dyad, or adding that small snippet in there, like some context around the relationship with the Sith, completely retcons Plagueis. And as Choco just stated, it doesn't really. It kind of makes sense.
Also, not all retcons are bad, guys. I'm just saying, like, they retconned that Ahsoka invented the Marg Sable maneuver, because Dave Filoni was such a big fan of Legends. Shout out to the Podwan's podcast. We actually discussed that as part of the Ryloth arc, so you can check that out. But yeah, Dave Filoni, big Legends fan, loved the Marg Sable maneuver, which is done by Thrawn and Heir to the Empire, and so he made Ahsoka do it in the Clone Wars. And then much later, they retconned it in the second Thrawn book, where he learned it. That's where he learned it, is from Anakin and Ahsoka.
Nice.
See, not all things are bad. Come on, guys.
Not at all. But I was saying the story group makes it so that like they didn't have a story group with Legends. And as much as people were like, oh, like Leland Chi, he's the keeper of the holocron, like, well, one person can only do so much, and even the story group is prone to making mistakes. But having that group there to always be aware of the overarching story of Star Wars, so that when someone's like, hey, I want to write a new story, and it's going to take place in like 6 ABY, what's going on? Can I do this? And that's why I always say that new canon is like 100 times more consistent with continuity through projects. But back to Force lore. I want to hear, because I know we've done, me and Choco have done a Dyad Explains video on this, but Core, we'll start with you. What is your thoughts on midichlorians?
So, like anybody else who grew up on the original trilogy, the first time I heard it, I was like, this makes no sense. It was just one of those things, like, because it didn't exist, and new information is hard sometimes. But I feel like that's sort of the point of growing up with your fandom. So now I understand, like, it's just a way for them to measure potential. It doesn't really mean anything. And it was a way for them to explain why Anakin was so special without taking any more time for that disaster of a plot. But it's sort of just a measurement of how well you could do. It doesn't mean that you're going to be a better Jedi than anyone else. It's what I like about the High Republic. Like, they talk about Rhys Silas. It's like, he's not naturally talented, but he tries harder than everybody else, and that's what's going to make him an excellent Jedi. So as I get older, like, midichlorians to me don't really matter, but it's a good way to explain how the Force works, and also how they can, as a order that is galaxy spanning, sort of recruit new members.
Yeah. What about you, Luke?
So basically, I mean, I grew up with the prequels, so like midichlorian, like I watched the original trilogy, but I was so small that it didn't really like click with me. So like watching it and hearing midichlorian count, like I just basically, at that time I was big into Dragon Ball Z, so it's like, oh, so it's like a power level. Okay, makes sense. So like Xcore was saying, like the High Republic does a great thing, because I mean, doesn't matter how high that count is. I mean, I think it depends on the Jedi. Like, Reith doesn't need, his best value might not be him swinging a saber. It's him studying books. It's the way the Force calls to each Jedi individually, and they're able to use that. I think that's really should be the point of, is it like, do midichlorians really factor into being, if you're Anakin Skywalker, or if you're a youngling that doesn't have any potential based on midichlorian itself? It's all growing into it, I think, in a way, some point.
Yeah, I think that's what happened during the prequels when Qui-Gon first says, when Obi-Wan first says Tova 20,000. I think everyone kind of like latched onto that, and they were like, power levels, and then they ran with it. And they were like, how much does Yoda have? How much does Palpatine have? How much does Luke have? And I remember looking up like a power level list, or like a midichlorian count list, and I'm like, where are these people getting these numbers?
Yeah.
my analogy, like, to midichlorians, which, I mean, honestly, Luke Skywalker does a very good job of explaining it in the Secrets of the Jedi book. He just says, he basically says he doesn't care. Yeah. he says, the amount of midichlorians is how loudly or how clearly you can hear the Force calling to you. But he's like, but that never mattered to me. All I care about is that it still does. The way I look at it is like the Fast and the Furious. Think of the first Fast and the Furious. Brian owes him a 10-second car. He pulls up in that busted up Supra, and they look inside. It's got a 2JZ motor in it, right? That motor, forged internals, you can get 1,500 horsepower with those things. That's the potential. Doesn't mean you're going to hit that. And even if you do hit that, doesn't mean you know how to drive. Doesn't mean you know how to corner. Doesn't mean your braking skills are there. There's so many.
Like you should.
Yeah, I mean, you'll never take down. You never had your car. But that's how I think about it. It's like this upper limit for possible potential. It doesn't mean actual skill and actual ability. I mean, we see Anakin at the height of his power and dipping into the dark side lose to Obi-Wan.
Yeah. And I like how Luke describes it to Vo in Rise of Kylo Ren, when she's having trouble kind of accepting that Ben is naturally talented at this stuff. And he's like, I train just as hard, if not harder than Ben, but it's so much easier for him. And then Luke's like, you know, everyone has the same amount of potential, just some people have their doors wide open, and you just have to work to open yours up just as wide. And so to me, midichlorians never meant that you couldn't get as powerful as someone else. It was always about your knowledge of the Force. As Dooku says in Attack of the Clones, it's like, it's clear to me that we are not going to settle this contest with the knowledge of the Force. And I feel like a person that finally connects with their midichlorians and just has like this symbiotic relationship with it to the point where they could glean so much information and so much like have such a powerful connection with them versus someone who has a lot but just barely knows how to talk to their midichlorians would be more powerful than that person, more capable of greater things. Shout out to new face in the chat, Bane's Rule. Unless that's a rename. Looks
Could be rename.
Shout out to Darth Choco with $10,000 in parts overnight from Japan. It will decimate all.
Watch your back.
Jedi Ninja says it's all the voices assisting your connection to the Force. It doesn't mean they'll actually help or listen, which is true, which is why people who use the dark side dominate them and seek to make them subservient. And you know, whenever I think of like versus questions, I often think about this a lot. Like, where is this coming from? Did you see a list of midichlorians and think, I'm going to ask him if he thinks that this guy's going to lose to this guy because he's got higher midichlorian count. But to me, it's always, midichlorians has always just been like at a cellular level, the things that enable you to talk to the Force. Whether or not you can talk to it loudly is one thing separated from how many you have. And as Kenny says, Darthman86, power without training means nothing, which is true, which is also like, I hated it when that happened, because when I saw that episode on The Mandalorian, I was like, I know these clowns are gonna latch onto that, because that statement is true, but what's not true is that Rey didn't have any training, and so that irks me. Do you guys have any final thoughts on midichlorians? Nope.
I mean, midichlorians, they're like I said earlier, it's just a base. It's just a base. That you guys had said it perfectly. Your midichlorian count as a Jedi shouldn't define you of how great or how good of a Jedi you're going to be. Mm-hmm. It's not how the midichlorian count affects you. It's just how you're able to pass that, not make it a thing, I guess I would say.
You know, that actually, what you said there actually made me think of a great example of like why it's not a sure thing, and that is them using Grogu. He has a high M count, but they're still failing at creating these strand casts. Of course, eventually they create Snoke, but spoiler alert. But yeah, like you would think that if it came down to your M count, they could just take like the blood of Grogu and just create a stronger or a strong strand cast, but it's a little bit more than that. What about you, Corey? Any final thoughts on midichlorians?
No, I basically just to repeat, like it doesn't mean much of anything other than just a way to tell whether or not someone can listen to the Force, and then it's about training the person to have that connection. I've said before that the Jedi never train to master abilities. They train to understand themselves and to understand the Force.
Yep.
Yeah. No, that's a great way to look at it because, I mean, like we see, the Force is it's a power that's external to the person. You know, like it might work the other way if it was a power that was inside of them, but no, this is your ability to tap into that power. Like, the power's over there.
Yeah. And, well, this goes straight into balance in the Force. Now, we have talked about this so many times. So, Luke and Core, what is balance in the Force for you guys?
So, balance in the Force is like yin and yang. You can't have one without the other. Hence why, and this might go on a little bit of a rant, but like the Chosen One, right? Every trilogy has a Chosen One. Anakin was the Chosen One of the prequel trilogy. He had failed, and it's all up to interpretation as well. So for the Jedi, bringing balance to the Force is completely getting rid of the light, getting rid of the dark side, right? Getting rid of the Sith, destroying the Sith. And the Sith's whole thing is obviously the opposite. Whereas in reality, the Force needs to just be balanced out with, there can't be too many Jedi, there can't be too many Sith. There has to be an even medium. Like in the prequels, we have Anakin and Palpatine, who are very similar in the Force, and that's that balance, right? And then Palpatine turns Anakin to Vader, and the balance is lost. There is no balance anymore. And then you have the original trilogy where Luke comes up, starts. There's not. The only issue with that statement, now that I'm thinking about it, is that there's really not a equal balance because there's two Sith, and obviously there's Luke, Yoda, and then Obi-Wan. But that's like, it's hard to explain because like the Chosen One, in my personal opinion, the Chosen One, there's three of them. There's Anakin, Luke, and then Rey. Rey is the sequel trilogy Chosen One because she does balance out the Force in a way. She does finally defeat the all overarching thing. But I think when you have balance, it's just like what I said is yin and yang. You can't have one without the other.
So it's a duality for you.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What about you, Core?
So, I think balance in the Force is just that. It's not the absence of darkness. It's not the overwhelming presence of light. It's balance. You need both to have either. And I think that's a big part of where we see everything moving. So if we look at the Sith's perspective, they just want to dominate everything. They want to rule the galaxy. And they do that by dominating the Force. And as we've seen over and over again, that leads to an imbalance. The Force can't be just destruction because you don't have creation at that point. And if you look at the Jedi of the late Republic, they're seeking to eliminate the Sith, and they're seeking to control the teachings in a way that is sort of counter to what they should be doing. Because again, balance isn't the presence of all light. And this is again why I think the High Republic is the greatest gift to Star Wars fans in the last 40 years, because it really shows you what balance in the Force is. And Vernestra Rose said it best. She said, we don't seek vengeance. We don't seek to take these lives. We can bring those people who did this to justice. But what that justice looks like isn't up to us. We serve the Force, and the Force doesn't pick sides. The Force isn't light. The Force isn't dark. The Force is. And I've said that a million times. That when you guys were on Cantina, I said I don't believe that light side and dark side is really a thing. I think that it's just a way that simpler minds can understand this universal truth, because it's about your intentions. It's about the way you're using the force. The force, because it can be used for anything. You could use the force to, stop a heartbeat, or you can use the force to start one. So, like if you look at the force in nature, there are creatures who are subsentient, I guess you could say, that have natural affinities to one side or the other. I mean, even plants, there are dark side and light side plants. So balance isn't about one or the other. It's about having a situation where they're both in balance. You have a cycle of creation and destruction, and you have the force can flow freely, like you guys always say, the dams and the water mills, and the Bendu's just sort of on a paddleboard in the middle doing his thing. So that's what balance is. It's not about the number of Jedi, the number of Sith, the number of any other force cult that happens to exist. It's just about the force being able to be what it is.
Yeah. I'm going to hand it off to you, Choco, really quickly, just to reiterate kind of like what the Dyad thinks the balance in the force is. And it largely kind of lines up with everyone else here.
Yeah, I mean, the way I typically, think about it is, because we know that the force is the energy field of life, right? Is the energy field of life, and it itself is going to seek life. Part of me likes to think about it like a plant, and the plant is going to grow, and it's going to seek out, light or what, and nutrients or whatever it needs to grow. When you have, so the Jedi and Sith are both two belief systems, but that doesn't matter. There's more than just those two. Like Luke says, to believe that the force belongs to the Jedi is vanity. For them to think that their way is the only way is vanity. And because of that, that's why we use the river analogy. The force is going to seek balance in and of itself. Now, when it comes to light versus dark, the light side itself does not unbalance it. It's like if you don't need the same amount of cops and criminals to achieve balance, right? You could have all cops, provided they aren't the criminals, but that's we're not going there this time. But in and of themselves, they won't cause the imbalance, but you have too many criminals, and they can corrupt everything and remove that. So the Sith are always trying to dominate the Force. The Force wants to flow freely. That domination is what is pulling the Force out of balance. So that's darkness, that's the death, that's destruction, and while all that is part of life, trying to wield that is what becomes problematic. So we even see the Jedi in the prequels becoming part of this war and being part of this death and destruction is leading out of balance. So yeah, overall, to sum up, the Force needs to just flow. And that's why the Jedi always say, feel the Force, let it flow through you. They aren't trying to dam the river and use it for their own ends. They're trying to work along with it and protect that life.
Absolutely. And I wanna address ballistic meme. The dark side lives freely at the cost of everyone's freedom. The Jedi sacrifice their freedom for everyone else. I do want to kind of clarify, or at least reinforce, this idea that the dark side in and of itself is a part of the flow of the Force. As Choco and everyone here has pointed out already, the Sith are the ones exclusively dominating the Force, and that is why it is the Sith that is, more often than not, 9 times out of 10, throwing the Force out of balance. So it's not like the Force favors the Jedi or the Force favors the light.
Am I lagging or did the stream drop? Just
It's all you. It's all you, Bane's rule.
Yeah.
No, it was us. I don't know.
It was us.
Press F in the chat, please. If you can see us now. I think my internet dropped for a little bit.
It looks like we're back.
You were making a good point, and they just didn't want you to finish it.
Listen. what was the last thing I said?
It was Mike Zero, and he saw.
What was the last thing I said?
I think it was
pretty much at
like
the beginning of you reiterating, and kind of talking about your thoughts on the balance.
Okay, so I was addressing ballistic meme. I basically was saying that the dark side is inherent with the flow of the Force, and it is not the dark side that throws it out of balance. It is the Sith. The Sith dominate the Force, they dam it up, and they change its current to their own whims. And so that is why more often than not, the Sith are the ones that are throwing it out of balance, not the dark side. Dark side.
A great example of this is the Night Sisters of Dathomir.
Mm-hmm.
For large part, I mean they're Darksiders, but you could argue about Mother Talzin, but that's a different story. But for large part, I mean they live on Dathomir, which is a dark side planet, and they live in balance with their environment.
Yeah. And
they use the dark side, but in a much different way than the Sith do. And I think as we go forward, we're going to start seeing more of that. I'm really excited for the stuff coming up.
The acolyte.
Yes. One of the things, but yes.
It's actually a great point that you bring up the Night Sisters too, because we actually don't know the inner workings of how it works with them. We do know that Dathomir is a dark side nexus, and we do know that the Dark Ichor draws from the dark side. Now, and then we do know that the Night Sisters use the Dark Ichor to supply their magics. What we don't know is if their magics is a result of dark side power, or if it just draws from the dark side, but then the resulting magic is just neutral in nature. You know what I mean? It's like siphoning gas from a car, but once it's inside your car, it's your gas. It's not really. You know?
That's how theft generally works. Yes. Once it's in my house, it's mine.
Yeah.
So
I mean, possession is 9/10 of the law, as they say.
What you're saying was very much echoed in Dark Disciple. When Quinlan Voss has to go and cut a piece off of the Dweller, which is a huge Force sensitive dark side creature, and they're always mixing stuff in bowls and having green stuff float off. I don't know what they're doing, but it looks tasty.
Spicy.
Why is it spicy?
Spicy.
Oh. So that is balancing the Force. I also wanted to shout out Secrets of the Sith, because they did canonize that interpretation, and I love it. That for all of these years, when we talk about flow, it's just out of my reach. Oh, if I had the Force.
Me and Choco just
new Dyad. Get out of here,
Pep. Sorry, it wouldn't be a Dyad. It would be Choco dragging me. Just come on, let's go.
Just wanted to shout out the book, because for years, especially leading up to my meeting Choco, I've always held onto that flow and river analogy and interpretation, and to see that passage where they said the Sith or the dark side, the users of the dark side often looked at the Force as a river, and that the dark side is the only way to change its current. And I was like, yeah, because that's what I think, and I just got reaffirmed. Affirmation is awesome. This is a very contentious topic coming up. Aspects of the Force. There's a lot of people that take varying sides here, and of course the normal thought process behind aspects of the Force is that there is a duality, and then there's like a middle ground in between, right? The light side and dark side, and then the middle. But there are some, including Cord, which I've watched your videos on this very subject, and I'm going to ask you to expound further in a moment, that it isn't so like, binary in that regard. So like, what is like the whole Force for you then?
So this was in the talking points. I don't know if we asked it. So the way that I think that I would see the Force is a million different points of light, sort of like a kaleidoscope, and there are some that are brilliant and white, there are some that are every other hue, and there are some that are like a black hole. They're so dark that you won't necessarily notice them, if not for the rest of the light, and they sort of almost can draw you in. And that's sort of what the Force is, in my opinion. It's a kaleidoscope. It is everything. They call it the Force for a reason. It's the thing that drives everything else. And it started from that little planet that we see Yoda go to, where the birthplace of the midichlorians, and where the Keeper of the Wills are. And so the Force, whether it's good or bad, whether it's dark or light, it's all in how you interact with it. It's all in whether you listen to it and let it carry you, or whether you try to impose your will onto it. It's one of the things that I'm going to talk about the High Republic, because this is the High Republic. The thing I love about the High Republic is we're getting so much more Force lore and story form than we've ever gotten before. You have the Into the Dark novel, and you have the flashback where Arla Jareni and Master Comac are on that mission, and she's getting the Force is telling her to take out the guards, and her master is telling her protect the prisoners, and she ignores what the Force is telling her, and she does what her master says, and they end up losing one of the prisoners. And that's what it is for me. You can listen to it, or you can dominate it, but no matter what, it's all in how you interact with the Force. The Force, again, it doesn't pick sides. The Force is.
What about you, Luke? Is the Force light, dark, middle? Is it that simple?
I mean, X-Core pretty much said it perfectly. Like, it doesn't pick sides. It's like an instinct. Like, you can either listen to it or you don't. You can work with it or you can work against it. It's pretty much up to interpretation, obviously, because that's why we're all interpreting it differently. But like, I think of it as it being in the middle and not choosing sides. It's the users that use it for their own purposes. They are just the Force itself is literally what Yoda says. It surrounds us, it combines us, and brings the galaxy together. It's there. It's up to the Force users that use the Force and how they use it, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
Would be my way of looking at it.
This is a very interesting topic because, it's always dangerous when we go into like assigning like categories for such a metaphysical thing, you know. And so I like to describe the Force as just the cycle of life and death itself. There is no light or dark about it, but what these factions hold on to is these, you know, social constructs, these language constructs that help them understand these parts of the Force. So you have life, and then you have death, giving room to making new life, making room for new life. And in the process, we had factions like you know, the Zepho, who believed in the life wind that ultimately fell to the dark side. Mistweavers, who called it the life current. Lots of river stuff, I know. And then we had, so here's the biggest contention, is the Force family, the Mortis gods. We had the son, the daughter, and the father, and then basically it was them being explicit about them being the light, the dark, and balance. Do you think that lends any credence to like a categorical duality of the Force, or was that just that family's interpretation of it as well?
I think it was just that family's interpretation of it. Because I mean, it plays out in the whole galaxy. Yeah, there's an evil, there's a good, there's evil, good, and then there is a middle. Just like everything else in life, there's not. There are factions. There's no doubt about it.
Yep. Not
everybody's going to think the same way, or everything would be either great or really crappy. But like with Mortison specifically, it for that family, they're categorizing themselves. What's not to say that the son couldn't turn around and find the light?
Yeah.
Or the father not being the one that is balanced, because in that arc, we find out that yeah, Anakin is truly the chosen one. He's able to do all these abilities, but what's to say that if Anakin were to be in the position of the father, that it would end out being balanced? You know what I mean?
That's true. Just them being in the positions that they are doesn't exactly guarantee that the role would be fulfilled to its fullest. I do want to go off on a tangent here, because Choco, it seems like you're engaging with someone about a certain topic. Do we want to vamp for that for a little bit?
No, I mean, it just came up, you know, in talking with the about the book Secrets of the Sith, that it seems to be retconning a lot of lore in Star Wars, and I get that some people feel like that. I myself love the main trilogy and, you know, the Plagueis book and all that, but kind of like we discussed here, while it's great, you know, they are great reads and very enjoyable, those books were never canon, you know. Before Disney bought Star Wars, they released a reader's companion, like a guide to explain the expanding universe, and in it, that's one of the first questions that gets asked: how real are these stories, you know? And they spell out exactly what canon is, and that the expanding universe was allowed to run alongside George's canon, even if he had his stamp of approval. It doesn't enter his canon unless it's depicted cinematically in one of his projects, right? We had the 6 movies, the Clone Wars movie and the Clone Wars series, right, was canon. It also, you know, and so we've seen that, and we know that. So if you're talking about this book retconning aspects, but it's things that you learned in these non-canon sources, that's not a retcon. That's not breaking any canon, because it's not breaking any pre-established canon lore.
Roger that.
Now I love the books, and I reread Plagueis like every other year. It's and the Bane trilogy. I just reread it. I'm gonna start doing videos on all my favorite Legends books. But yeah,
I'm on the
mean,
second book now.
So here's like the thing that I would have to say here. It's like they came out and literally when they were writing these books, they had a section in the book saying that this is not canon. Like this doesn't equivalent. This is not part of the story. And
Now,
people just like to look over that sometimes.
they originally did not have that section in
when they were coming out.
Yeah, in the original prints.
Oh, okay.
I do believe that picture or that section appeared first in a Fantasy Flight, or no, it was a West End Games RPG reference book, source book.
Okay.
But still, even regardless of that, we all know how Pablo Hidalgo and Leland G treated that stuff. Even if it had even if people bring up the tiers of canon, it's a lesser canon, and G canon is biblical to what is main canon. The only reason they did that was Leland Chi.
it was internal. It was not.
Yeah.
It wasn't meant for anyone outside of it. That's just how they kept records in the holocron. So like if something came out in a comic or something like that, then yeah, he would input that into the holocron, but had a hierarchy for like, okay, well, this new canon thing came out, so this is gone and this comes in. And no one knows that better than Karen Travis, who was writing out, beloved story. A lot of people still love her, her stories, but never got to finish the series because the Clone Wars just ran over it and broke her story. She just couldn't finish it.
I think what the general problem is that a lot of people have is separating canon and continuity, because what the holocron did, as Choco pointed out just now, is that it literally gave continuities its own canon tier. And in this case with Disney, there is one canon, and prior to Disney there were multiple canons. What Disney was following suit with after their purchase was George Lucas's canon. So even if internally they saw the New Republic, New Jedi Order, the Old Republic as S canon or something, that was still a separate canon. And I see a lot of people say, oh, canon, but lesser canons. Like, no, it's a separate canon. And so what I like to say nowadays with canon and continuity is that all of Legends is a separate continuity. And canon is what Lucasfilm is regarding as what actually happened.
Well, it's kind of like the MCU and like the Fox X-Men movies, Wolverine is a phenomenal movie, Logan. Logan is a phenomenal movie.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to include it in your MCU rewatch. It's not part of the MCU.
Mm-hmm. And which is why I don't get why people can't and this is not against you, Bane's rule. I'm just speaking in generality now. People can't separate the source material from what's being depicted on film, right? Because the MCU does that all the time. It's the movies aren't a one-to-one of any of the comic storylines. They usually are an adaptation of a storyline, but they're never one-to-one.
Yeah. And
the latest example of that, I still think, even though they haven't confirmed it, is the art for Miss Marvel. I think that it is creative license. I think that the art is showing the before and after at the same time. And I don't think it is changing her power set. So until Marvel confirms that they've changed it, I think people are overreacting for no reason. But I get why people are reacting the way they are reacting. I'm
a Miss Marvel fan, so I just had to show that off. No, I mean, also there's another part of it too, where we all know the name Ewoks, right? Ewok was never stated in the film. Palpatine wasn't stated in the originals. We found out his name later. We found out Sheev in 2014. There's a lot of stuff that we know, right? The controls of the X-Wing are similar to a T-16 Skyhopper because they're both made by Incom. There's a lot of stuff that we just know. Now, do you remember exactly where you found out that information? Probably not. We just know it now. And I think there's a lot of stuff like that where it's hard to separate where you know it from and the canonicity of that source. I mean, I don't know if you guys have in your head like power level metachlorian levels for different characters, because I've seen lists. I don't know where they came from.
No, yeah.
But sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, finish what you were gonna say.
Oh no, I was gonna say we have derailed slightly. Though.
Yeah. But it's still an interesting conversation. NetRexCT says in the chat, do you count Legends as a separate universe, as in like a multiverse, or is it simply never happened? So you guys are free to answer that question however you will.
So I like the explanation that they are in fact legends. These are the stories that would have been handed down, and there is some truth to them. Think of it like the legend of King Arthur that came from somewhere.
Yep.
So you have all these people who are, telling stories about what things were like. Even stuff we know that isn't true, but like you may have someone who heard of Luke Skywalker and what he did and how he did have a school. So you have people who are like, oh, and then this happened. For any of you with kids, your kids will ask you to make up a story. And so this is kind of what humans do. This is what sentient beings in this galaxy that's not too terribly unlike our own would probably do. You're going to have these heroes and you're going to tell their stories. So they're the legends. These are the legends of Luke Skywalker. They're the legends of
Skywalker. Shout out to that book.
I was picturing like a grandpa, like, all right, kids, let me tell you about Palpatine's three-eyed grandson named Triclops.
Or Luke.
Yes.
Yeah, well, because it's like, well, then what happened? It's like, oh crap! Now I gotta, when your kids ask you to tell you a story, and you've thought of everything you can, and then like, and then what? And then you're like, oh, now I have to think of something else, man.
So the Essential Reader's Companion actually does say, like, did this happen? Like, they literally say that if it isn't contradicted in the films and in canon, it's likely that it could have happened. So they are, in fact, legends, right? And I do want to make this clarification. There is no one is better than the other. You might have opinions on that, but the only reason I care about canon, that I care about legends, is for organizational purposes. Okay? So when I speak about legend stories, I'm working with legends continuity. And when I'm speaking about canon stories, I'm working with canon continuity. So I'm not going to talk about Plagueis using canon context because we don't have any canon stories with Plagueis. And I'm not going to talk about Satil Shan using stories from canon because it just doesn't fit. Darth Mar is supposedly a Force ghost, and somehow he returned. But it's not like, when I say that's not canon, it's not a dig at legends at all, if you prefer legends. It's just me saying that's not legends because right now we're talking about a legend story, or we're talking about a canon story, and legends does not fit in that continuity.
I mean, again, I go back to Marvel. Logan is better than most things in the MCU, but Wolverine Origins is worse than just about everything in the MCU. So, like, you can't say truly say, oh, well, this is better or worse. Like it's personal preference. It's
Open to interpretation.
Yeah.
and if you love Wolverine Origins and Will I Am in a cowboy hat, cool, man.
He can sure rock that cowboy hat, though.
I gotta say, Liev Schreiber though, I thought he did a great job in that film.
He was. He was incredible. But to wrap things up about like aspects of the Force, I do want to provide an example of like, you know, unreliable narrators, right? Because I'm pretty sure you guys saw my list of factions examples. The Gensarai, you know, when we're talking about different interpretations of the Force and what people believe and the discrepancies between the disparities between factions, the Gensarai actually thought that they had the truth of the Force. Like the Gensarai is Katat for followers of the hidden truth. And they found this manuscript of I was about to call him Norinrad, but I know it's not his name. It was a Sith Lord, and it was a recounting of the first Dark Jedi that had established the Sith Order. The only problem is their recounting of that was a lie. And the Gensarai were studying this manuscript, hoping that they could achieve true balance between Jedi teachings and Sith teachings. But this manuscript was a lie, and they all fell to the dark side. So it's kind of like, it depends on who you're learning from. Mm-hmm. You know, you could like, I could go up to the next person, try to teach them about the Force and be like, yeah, the dark side, you know, death creates new life, and so death, we should revere death. And just go and just let them fall completely towards death and destruction. Mm-hmm. So I kind of wanted to point out that example, because you'll hear a lot of people say, what about the Gensarai, or the Jedi? Even the Jedi, they had to meditate to maintain the middleness of themselves. And so if you didn't have that meditation, they'd fall completely.
Sorry, Anakin.
And I keep on saying that, man. If you could be gray, if you could, and this is just with the definition of, like, the popular definition of gray. We can have way seekers, we can have independent Jedi, you know, that exist externally from the Order or the Council. But the popular definition of gray Jedi being using both the light and the dark side, and it just like ruins the impact of redemption for Star Wars. That's
I would love to see a conversation between a gray Jedi and Anakin, and he's like, yeah, I thought by using the power of the dark side, I was led to believe it could help me save, you know, the person that I love from death. And then, sadly, I ended up falling to the dark side corruption. And the Grey Jedi would be like, why didn't you just not fall?
Why didn't you not give in to your attachments? What the heck, man? What's wrong with you?
Just use both. I don't know. Did you ever think about that? And he'd be like, oh, I never thought about it. I don't know. It just like it breaks Star Wars at its very core.
Yeah, it does.
Shout out to Xanatos 1138, says, I liked Wolverine Origins till reading the comic it's based on and seeing it's nothing alike. Also Gambit, yikes. Wolverine.
Although
Gambit,
that's my pick for Eli Vanto, the guy that played Gambit.
Taylor
and,
Kish.
Eli Vanto.
Taylor Kish.
You know, Wolverine and Gambit are my favorite X-Men, and like, until today, we don't have a great Gambit portrayal.
Here's the thing, Element. Would you want Channing Tatum to play Gambit?
I was willing to give him a shot.
I didn't. He's always been.
Let me clarify. I didn't want Channing Tatum to be Gambit, but when they announced it, I was like, well, there's nothing I can do. I'm gonna give him a shot. You know, just like I gave Gal Gadot a shot, and I ended up loving Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. So, like, thinking
like
about,
any sane person, right?
Yeah, I mean, thinking
God,
about
the fans hated when she got cast. She's too skinny and all this stuff, and all those people. I have a bunch of friends that did that, and I'm like, hey, remember when you said this? And they're like, nope.
Oh man! And so when I think of Channing Tatum as Gambit, I don't think of Gambit. I don't think of that he's a good Gambit. But I was like just like with Patman, or Patton, or
Battinson.
I mean, it's not my first choice, but so far from what I've seen, he's looked really good.
Yeah.
So
I'd agree.
I 9 times out of 10 won't like shut anything down. I'll always give it a chance. But as we approach further and further at the end of this episode, we do have to go to the final question of the episode, which is, what is your force? And this question applies to the chat as well. Basically, how do you see the force? What aspects exist? And does it more align with canon or legends, or neither? Do you have a unique force that you would love to be canon? And we'll start with Core.
So I sort of jumped the gun when I answered this one, but yeah, so I do see the Force as a million different points of light, and it all enables the incredible varied hues that we have, because each individual is distinctly different through the Force, as Yoda said to the clones. And so as far as aspects of light and dark and balance, and we got away from it before. The way I see the Mortis arc is a lot different than a lot of people. Knowing that Mortis is a Force Nexus, and knowing that when you enter a Force Nexus, it gives you visions of what you bring with you. I feel that because the 3 people who went in there were Jedi, that this is the way the Nexus was showing them what balance in the Force is. It's the same way with Luke on Dagobah or Rey on Ahch-To. So that's how I see that whole arc. It's not that it didn't happen, it's that those events would have been completely different, say if a Sith went in there or if one of the Zepho went in there. And having said that, I like the way that the Force exists in canon now. Again, going back to the High Republic, this is the way I always thought the Force worked. The only thing that I don't necessarily like that they gave a huge bit of credence to was that the dark side grants you sort of an instantaneous boost. Mm-hmm. I always felt that it was sort of going back to Empire, that the dark side was just faster, that it wasn't necessarily more powerful. That's something that I don't necessarily like about the Force in canon, but other than that, no, I like the way things are, and I can't wait till we get more. Like I want them to explore more of each of the sects, each of the factions that we have. I'd like to learn more about all these different Force cultures that exist, because there are a great deal of them.
Yeah, for sure. Shout out to Haley, Corellia Coffee Works, who keeps joining at the end of our podcasts. We still love you. No matter what. Let's see here. Xanatos says, I don't know. I never put much thought into it. I kind of just saw it as a literal energy field that can be manipulated, and the energy field warps to create pushes or pulls. That's not bad, you know?
Kind of what I was thinking.
Bane's Rule thinks the Force is an endless field with each blade adding to the whole, all with different hues of shade. Okay. What about you, Luke? How do you see the Force?
So kind of like what Xanatos said, it's like it's an energy field that surrounds us, binds us together, just like Yoda has always said.
But how
But
do you
if
see
I,
it?
how do I see it?
Think of the High Republic, like the oceans.
I
the
would think
fires.
I would think it would be like connecting with people, kind of feeling their energy and feeling the vibe of like if somebody's in trouble, trying to figure out the way to help them. And the Force calls out to you and gives you the kind of like a door, like it's an open door in most dreams to superheroes of like trying to find, they're in this like dream, and they open that door, and it's the door that answers to all their questions. Kind of, that's the kind of the way I see it. But I also really like the way that it calls to Avar in music. Like that resonates with me as well, because if I hear a certain song, it'll take me back to a certain time, and it'll bring like emotions and stuff like that. But like that's how I see the Force. And like I think it's more or less just doors being able to open to new possibilities and new ways to help people. And I would align it more with canon, to be honest, because that's just more of what I know.
Yeah.
If I'm gonna be honest,
I would
but-
assume you and Core is both lines definitely with High Republic
oh yeah,
War.
absolutely.
Ned Rext sees the Force as life and consciousness. It ties everything together, and some people have the ability to manipulate it. Okay. Harith sees the Force as a camera. I must use my focus. My ability to focus, I guess. Is that what you meant? Matthew Ray says the Force to me is like a web connecting all living things, no matter how far each point is connected. Ooh, Charlotte's Web. Okay,
The internet.
Harith corrected himself. As a camera, I must hone in my ability to focus on what I want from my abilities. Right on. Really quickly, I'll just reiterate what I've said in the past. I think I would see the Force as everything is quads and blocks in a game engine world where everything is blocked out. Like if you've ever seen a level blocked out before it's actually finalized, if you've seen like alpha tests or like map previews, it's all blocked out, it's all colorless, and it's, you know, and moving things is as simple as moving its XYZ axes. And yeah, I've said that before. What about you, Choco? You still see it the way you saw it before?
Yeah, I see it as an old Nissan Skyline with an RB26 DET. Sorry, I still see it the same way, where it's music to me, but it's a lot. It feels more deconstructed than what Avar Crisp says, where it's individual, like it's notes, it's tempo, it's percussion, where at certain moments, you know, you can hear it, you can hear background noise, but also that the amplitude can increase, and certain notes will sustain, or like depending on what's happening, you might have an increase in tempo, or you know, things like that. And every person is its own thing, but we're all trying to live and create harmony with one another. And of course, you can go out of balance and go out of harmony, or start hearing sour notes and stuff like that. That's kind of how I see it.
Interesting, like August Rush.
Great movie, by the way.
Have you seen it,
Also,
No.
Oh
What?
my god!
you haven't seen August Rush, dude? And you're a musician. I feel like we have to stop the Harry Potter watch along and get him to watch August Rush.
Yeah, I mean, it is one movie. We'll have to get him to watch it.
The funny.
Oh, yeah, I'd watch it. I'd love to watch it. I
Funny
never
story.
watched much movies growing up.
You want to watch it tonight?
So
I can't. I have stuff I gotta do.
Funny story. My mom was gonna name me August, and I would have been Augie, which would have been a really tough name in high school and middle school, to be honest. So
I know all about tough names in high school.
there you go.
Mabe says Ezra's force ability to bond and communicate with creatures is one of her favorites, without a doubt. Very, very nice. I don't know if you're still here, but Jedi Ninja, thank you for tuning in to the Dyad and the Force. I hope you have a wonderful night. Let's see here. Darthman86 is going with the Sith code as a way of looking on how we look at life. I do agree with peace, but it takes passion to achieve it, strength to achieve that passion of peace, and the focus to achieve it. So it looks like you might follow like a Sith version 2.0 code in a sense, or I don't know. Any way that you can make the Sith less douchey. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I would. There are many ways to do that because they're so douchey in nature. But I agree with a lot of their code in varying degrees. Simply because, like, I don't think that you should, you know,
Commit genocide.
yeah, you shouldn't commit genocide. But you definitely shouldn't deny your passions. You shouldn't deny your emotions. But at the same time, it's like, oh, everyone must die. That's a little bit, you know, it's a little suspect. Let's see. Haley says, this is such a good question, but as a non-Force user, I feel I don't know the Force well enough to assign it an analogy. It's such a metaphysical concept. I'm not ready to say. What are you talking? Why is Asajj Ventress telling us she's not a Force user? What's going on? I think unless you see another interpretation in the chat that you want to shout out, Choco, I think we can move on to the weekly Q&A.
Indeed.
Okay, so moving on to our weekly Q&A, we're going to take some questions that were posited on our social media platforms.
Before QA was taken away.
Yes. But we're going to open the answering. We're going to open each question up to the gallery. Right, so if you can answer the question within like 20 seconds, because we're going to try to keep it within, you know, time parameters. If you can answer the question in less than 20 seconds, chime in. But with that said, let's go on to our first question, which comes from Discount Sansa Stark. And that is, what 2022 Star Wars project are you most excited about? And I will have to say first, Ahsoka. An Acolyte.
Yeah, definitely the Acolyte. I think it's time for a deep dive into Sith lore and canon.
Is Acolyte confirmed for 2022?
I don't know, but I'm excited for it.
That's my answer. I'm sticking to it. How about that?
Yeah. What about you, Luke?
Kenobi.
Right.
And more Kenobi.
You all about that Song Kang, right? I mean,
I'm
McGregor.
into my what I want to happen, but that's more than 20 seconds, so I can't get into it.
Right. Next question comes from Crisis 572.
Can I answer it?
Sure.
No, for me, I also have to say, if we're sticking, you know, within the parameters of 2022, I am very much looking forward to Kenobi. I just think there's a lot of unknowns there, and so I would look forward to spending some time in this little window, because that hasn't been explored. We've seen everything about the Clone Wars.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy to jump forward a little bit, you know?
Yeah, sorry for skipping you there. Okay, so the next question comes from Crisis 572. Was Grievous an actual Sith or just a glorified cyborg?
He wasn't a Force user at all.
Yeah, well.
He was just a dude with goals. I respect that.
He wanted to be the very best. I mean, yeah.
No one ever was.
Oh, we were thinking. Oh, now Dyad moment. Dyad moment there.
So yeah, just like Cora said, he wasn't a Sith at all, but He wasn't a glorified cyborg. I mean, he was a living Kalish before then. Any more thoughts on Grievous?
Do you think we'll get something? Backstory, book, comic, show, maybe?
Not before we get a Plagueis canon book.
Okay, that I will agree with that. I need a Plagueis canon book. I need that in my life.
Yep. Next question comes from Onyx Artist 32. Shout out to Onyx Artist. Would you be interested in seeing an era of Star Wars following the sequel trilogy? Read Echoes of the Past.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
100% yes. I the thing I want to see most, and I don't know if I doubt that we do this, but
Brim boy.
I think that
Legends of Tomorrow.
I think Traya would be like an amazing like enemy for the future of Star Wars. If Rey's trying to bring some type of Force, Jedi Order that is more focused on the balance, I would love it if the enemy of it is trying to destroy the Force.
You just blew my mind. Like, bringing Traya from that section of time to the other side of time and just making her the new baddie. Can't wait to hear all of the Nihilist fanboys.
Star Wars Galactus.
Yeah. Next question comes from Ace Bronx. Who do you think would win, Maul or Dooku? I'm going to have to say Maul.
It depends on when.
I would have said Dooku.
Yeah.
I'm going with
Yeah,
Dooku
I think
as well.
I think Dooku. I've already said this. Dooku is like, if you leave Yoda and Palpatine out of it, Dooku's like #1 duelist, especially if you
Yes.
look at what he could have done if he wasn't a million years old.
But I want Element's thought on it, though. Why he said Maul. Because that's intriguing to me.
I don't think Dooku is prepared for Maul's ferocity. He's a duelist. Okay. He's a fencer. He would win in a fight that's against someone who is respecting the rules of dueling and fencing. But Maul's just gonna for lack of a better term, ravage him and just be dirty. Like he's going to play dirty, and he's going to do whatever it takes. And I'm just trying to keep it simple. I don't want to do like a versus where I'm like thinking about the venue and the circumstances and the potential, the prime, like who's not old, who's not an old person, who's not missing half their body, all of those factors.
Well, I know a lot of people that would also like Maul to ravage them and play dirty.
Nice. I don't know why Luke isn't showing up, but we've been on this. Let me try to fix that really quickly. I
like Harith's comment, Choco.
I guess Luke is the Maul of the Dyad in the Force, constantly trying to turn Choco into his new apprentice. That was one of my favorite things in Rebels, was just when Maul would show up and be like, "How's our apprentice doing?" And Kanan's like, "Come on, man! Like,
yeah,
can you not, dude?"
Okay, it looks like Luke is back with us on the Q&A scene. Let us move on to the next question. From Gadi Zaig or Gadazaig, what Legends character would you like to see canonized, presuming it can fit into continuity? I mean, Satil Shan. Is this still Saba 17 for you?
I love Saba, but I kind of broke it already because I want Traya brought in the future. So that's the question that made me think about that. So that's what I would really love. But yeah, other than that, I gotta go with my girl Saba 17 or Prince Sizor.
Ooh.
He's a really interesting and a cool villain, and running Black Sun, it just introduces a whole new faction and a following who has like these pheromones and stuff like that. Like it's a whole thing. He's a cool character.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Revan, even though he already is canon in name. I'd like to see a canon story with Revan.
Dang it.
Luke, are you like just dyading with everyone?
Well, like I said before,
He's a dyad whore.
Hey, I am not. Don't stevy my name with that. I don't know a whole lot of like Legends characters, so that's kind of the first issue. So I was gonna say Revan as well because that's like one of the main thing that I know from Legends, because he does seem like a pretty cool character. There's a lot of things that they could do if it could fit canonically, and explain a couple of things like, let's say, the dyad or certain things like that. You know, it could.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of those stories from the Old Republic can, like, one-to-one fit into current continuity. They just have to change a little bit of the Force lore.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, introducing Bastila and Revan's story into canon would work. I think largely like 98%. Bane's Rule says Bane or Malgus. I mean, anything in the Old Republic is really a good contender for canonizing stories. Kenny says Mara Jade in the sequel series. Would you like her in like after the sequels, like with Traya? Is it Traya versus Mara Jade?
Interesting.
Brooke wants to see Maul in Fallen Order 2. I don't think it's pertaining to the question. She just wants to see Maul in Fallen Order 2.
Chaos.
If you, she also says, if you have Revan, she'd also love Bastila and tie it back to the Dyad. Yes, that is the most.
Yes.
That's probably the best thing they could possibly do if they're talking about Revan and Bastila.
Yeah, first Dyad. That'd be interesting.
You think that they would get all of those Revan people that like canon a little bit more? If they did that?
Absolutely not.
they would. Not my Star Wars. No way.
Brooke says you were talking about Maul when I sent that. That's true. Still, I like to say you just want to see Maul in Fallen Order 2. Next question comes from James Madalo. I have a question. Did Palpatine ever know that he was going to eventually fall? My quick answer is that yes, that's why he was so obsessed with prolonging his life and plans. And Luke eventually falling.
Luke has fallen to the dark side. But hopefully he redeems himself and pops back up. Yeah, I mean, I think yes as well, because I think that I think largely he always knew, like he was always on the cusp. He was always about to fall. He was always about to lose. I think he gets way too much credit as he is a master strategist, but his plans were just a hair's breadth from falling apart dozens and dozens and dozens of times. And he's just like spinning plates and trying to stop them from falling. I think he knew it was going to happen eventually, and that's why he was always trying to stack the deck as best he could.
Yeah. Do you guys have any thoughts about Palpatine's fall?
No, I think Choco nailed that one personally.
All right, Luke, we're back.
Yep.
All right. Brooke says Palpatine reminds me of Voldemort, always obsessed with the stuff you're not supposed to touch.
He's better than Voldemort, and I will not hear anything of it.
Up the dark side is a pathway to many abilities. Next question comes from Saracen. Why/how did the Jedi become generals in the war? Episodes 1 and 2 made it very clear that they're not soldiers and don't fight wars.
They were dragged into it. Simple as that.
Here comes the general.
They were forced into it. They
were put in a literally a no-win situation, and this is sort of the brilliance of Palpatine's plan. He had Dooku. Dooku was a former Jedi. You have a former Jedi rampaging across the galaxy. The Jedi can't do nothing.
Yep.
Like that's basically what it was. Because if the Jedi had said, "We're not soldiers, we'll help negotiate, we'll help do this or that," you have the populace like, so you're just gonna let this guy take what you taught him and do all this stuff?
Yeah. I also like to think of it that the clone army was basically a bunch of infants. And the Jedi under false pretenses, the Jedi were the ones that ordered the clone army. And so they have to lead those infants. And that's why when people are like, why is Ahsoka leading an army? Like, because Ahsoka's older than that army too. You know?
And real quick, just to point it out though, so the Jedi actually said no to the army when Sifo Dyas brought up the idea, and he still did it behind everyone's back.
Mhm.
I had to discuss this many times on a recent video of mine. But also a big thing that led them into it is this is a droid army. So if they were both living sentient beings, then the Jedi would try to mediate. But if you send out just a bunch of murder robots, the Jedi have to step in. And you know, and that's one of the reasons why I actually do really enjoy Revan's story, because it's the exact opposite, where the Jedi wouldn't join this war, and he's like, "Fine, I'll do it myself." You know, was that the right decision? Was that the wrong decision? Were they supposed to stand there and watch most of the Republic get slaughtered? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but yeah, they were dragged into it by an immaculate plan by Palpatine.
Yeah. Next question comes from Alex Stoop Kid. What's one thing you wish was done differently about each trilogy? Now, we'll go around the room, pick one trilogy, and change something about it. I will go first. I think that the execution of Palpatine's return in the sequel trilogy was horrible. They should not have broadcast that in Fortnite, and they should have shown the Eye of Webishbog and Kylo Ren. That scene,
Agreed.
That scene would have paid dividends for setting up his return. And that's my change for that sequel trilogy.
Prequels, I would tell George to have somebody else direct them. You produce them, do whatever you want. You can have CGI. But for God's sake, stop screwing up the love scenes between Padme and Anakin. I think those are the hardest things in the prequels to watch. Like those back and forths, and like to watch like the hostage crisis episode of Clone Wars and see that back and forth was like 10 times better than seeing it on screen in the actual movies. You know what I mean? It's like that'd be my like one thing that I would change.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder what George Lucas was like, because you know he's married, right? I want to see what their first date was like. I want to be a fly on the wall of him being like,
So come here often.
You some type of angel?
Are you from Diego? I heard there are angels
They first
there,
met
huh?
and he was like, "You must be a Jedi. Only Jedi carry laser swords." What about you, Core?
I would change the scene where Kylo Ren throws his crossguard lightsaber, and I would have had him heal the blade, because it would have been way cooler to have him have a white crossguard lightsaber. It would cut down the fight with the Knights of Ren, who were basically worthless anyway, and then you could have had an extended interaction between the Dyad and Palpatine.
Yeah.
I will.
I agree to an extent. Simply because he still needed to get Anakin's saber back. Like that was.
Yes, I agree.
That was the completion of his arc. He wanted it; it belonged to him, but it didn't go to him because the saber needed Rey to turn him. So I agree. I would love to see the clean the clean stable crossguard lightsaber. That would have been cool.
No. Unstable white lightsaber because it's still got that massive crack in it from when he bled
that's
it.
True.
So it'd just be this yeah. The fight, the Knights of Ren were wasted anyway. So cut them down with that because once he gets a saber, that he just punks them all.
Mm-hmm.
So then that would show you he's back. Ben's back.
Yeah,
Like
he
you
could
just
dual
you
wield
cut
him.
you cut right when he's looking at the saber. You cut right there, and then the
That'd be
next time you see him, he's got that saber, and then he turns it on, and it's white, and you're like, holy shit.
How about this? He dual wields them, right? He shows up with his unstable white saber, and as he's fighting the Knights of Ren, Rey tosses him the Anakin saber, and he catches it like in Attack of the Clones and starts going into Anakin's dual wield flurry.
Ooh.
Nice. Yeah, that'd be awesome
dope.
too.
That would have been dope.
Choco, what about you?
The only thing that scene would lose is the fact that both him and Rey are using the same moves.
Yeah,
Which
I'm
is really
just
cool.
vamping.
But yeah, no, but for me, whew, I mean, I prepared one for every trilogy. So,
go for it if you
I
can.
guess. Okay. Prequel trilogy, like you said, have someone else direct it, but keep Anakin a little bit older. Keep him like 12. Small change. It hits different. Original trilogy, The Last Jedi. Return of the Jedi. The plan in the beginning just doesn't make any sense. I don't understand it.
It
Luke's
makes a
plan
lot
was
more
literally,
sense
dude,
within
I'm
the
gonna do a
context.
huge flip.
Within the context of the War of the Bounty Hunters now, they're doing a really good job.
Yes, they are tying that together, but like I feel like the beginning of that film is only tangentially connected to the rest of it, and so I think that could have been done a little bit differently. And then for the sequel trilogy, I love The Last Jedi, but I would want basically The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi to be merged into one movie, and then give us another movie.
Okay.
Hmm.
I like that a lot, actually. I like that a lot.
Basically, just start giving us 4-hour movies. Nobody
Yeah.
cares.
Come
Nobody
on.
cares if it's long. Come on.
I mean, look at the
Snyder.
Snyder Cut.
Yeah,
People
That was
watched that.
long. That was so freaking long.
but also please don't. But okay, give us long, but long
But Two
movies,
Towers, I was wanting more
Mhm.
by the
See?
time it ended. But
Ah.
but Justice League was really long.
The thing is, it didn't need to be. It had so much slow motion.
They sung
Yeah.
in Ancient Lamentations for like 12 minutes, and they're just watching. Aquaman left the scene, and they're just like singing, and I'm like, cut, damn it.
Oh man, I would love extended movies, to be honest.
I agree.
We need to nix the trilogy format as well. We need to do what MCU is
Yeah.
doing. Movies upon movies, just to tell the story, no matter how long it takes.
I think that's where they're going.
Oh yeah. Although
Like
RJ still
aside
has the trilogy.
from, yeah, that might change because I think they've realized after this last trilogy that it's sort of too big of a universe, especially now, and like you can see sort of the road they're taking with all the Disney Plus stuff that they're giving us.
Mhm. Can you imagine
Like-
how much more successful the sequel trilogy could be if the sequels was like 10 movies leading to that? Like leading
Yes.
to
Oh
that.
yeah.
Okay, I'm just gonna spitball something real quick though. Imagine the Duel, but live action and made to fit in canon, and then when the person looks up, it's Kylo Ren, and he's going around like he can't just like if he didn't die, obviously if he didn't die in Rise of Skywalker,
Oh, okay.
it's Kylo Ren, and he can't just go join the Resistance because he's like, you know what I mean? So
Kylo freaking Ren.
So it's his atonement for all of his previous actions, and he's, you know, trying to right wrongs in the galaxy, and we follow him, and it's just called, you know, it's called Ben Atonement.
So basically, like Sasuke after Shippuden. Is that what you're telling me?
But he has 2 arms.
Just Ben's taking his Musheshu guilt, which is the warrior's pilgrimage. We just need as many movies as it takes to tell a story. That's all. We can't do this like 3 movies. We're gonna tell it all. It just doesn't happen anymore.
Sure, gonna miss those Roman numerals though.
You can still keep them.
Can you?
Yeah, we could do episode 11 to episode 20. It doesn't really matter.
Okay.
Yeah, except the Skywalker saga is over, right? Like that, isn't that what they said? It's gonna be interesting because I really want some more Rey and Finn content.
But there's no reason that in episode 10 that is like Rey and Finn can't be its own thing outside of Skywalker saga.
All the blood Skywalkers are dead.
Yes.
And I mean, I don't know. I also thought it was weird when people were surprised that Ben didn't make it because they kept saying this is going to be the end of the Skywalker saga. And I was like, okay, so then all the Skywalkers are going to die.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's how I took it, but
Yeah.
All right, final questions. This one comes from Victor X Ochi. Why do you think there is so much controversy over Rey taking the name Skywalker? When I first heard people complaining about it, I thought they were joking.
It's all preference. It's all preference. And to be honest, some people just like to say that to rise up other people. And if you don't want to, my biggest issue here, especially with the whole Rey thing, is that it clearly shows Luke and Leia giving her the blessing of being a Skywalker. She destroyed the Sith just like Luke and Anakin did. Like, why is there any why is there any difference here? There's not. She did exactly what Anakin and Luke both achieved. Leave it at that.
Yeah, the bottom line for me is that names in Star Wars are just names. Like, so Han got his name from a recruiter. Caleb changed his name to Kanan. You know, everybody changed their names eventually, some way, shape, or form, to something that just to suit them. That doesn't really matter. And yes, if you choose to be an Obama, you can be an Obama. I don't care.
I don't know why that's the go-to. So if I change my name to Obama and I'm an Obama, like, yes.
Yeah, that's how that works.
No, what I see it as is the same reason why I have trouble playing Renegade on Mass Effect if I make the character look like me. If a character becomes a self-insert, they look like me, I have trouble making like the mean decisions that I wouldn't make. But if I make them so they look nothing like me, then it's a lot easier for me to separate myself from the character. I honestly, and this isn't me trying to say, oh, everyone is sexist or whatever, and they hate women, but I think that if you have a harder time imagining yourself, it's a different type of self-insert character. Mm-hmm. And if you know, there's so many people where their handle is something Skywalker, right? But if you don't identify with that character, it can be jarring to see that person take my name that I believe that I loved so much growing up. That's how I typically see it, because nothing else makes any sense to me.
And the people that say, "Oh, she didn't lose a hand," like, neither did Shmi, neither did Ben. Calm down. Brooke says, I didn't like it at first time I saw the movie, but now I sob every time I see it because it makes me so happy. And then Harith says, I was originally on the Rey Solo train, but now seeing so many people latch on to the idea of Rey Skywalker made me fall in love with it. It's all about the message that
Rey Kenobi
connected to it.
Yeah.
Bane's rule says Luke changed to Luke. I believe that's who Yoda was referring to when he said, there is another.
Stop.
It was Luke. He knew.
Lukey.
I always said about the Skywalker name too. It's at this point, it's not just the family name; it's a mantle. It's the mantle of hope, and clearly, she's the only one left that's carrying that.
Absolutely. All right, last two questions. Let's make this like a lightning round so we can start wrap things up because we are over time. The Ultimate Brow asks, how would you compare Master Yoda to the duelists of the past, Old Republic etc? I think he's better than them. What about you guys?
Oh yeah,
Agreed.
Yoda's the best. Like there's a reason.
Yoda, I agree. Yoda's the best. Also, he's so small that I don't think anyone knows how to fight him. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like that's part of his advantage. Like,
Yeah.
how do I hit him? Like he's all lightsaber.
and it's just terrifying when you hear just flipping around. Just come on, he's already got the advantage.
Just like in my night videos, there's a reason people are running from him. Like Dooku's like this. Gets into his duelist stance and he's like, oh crap. What do I do here? This is not what I was training for. Last question. Maz's Basement One asks, where did Luke get the crystal for his episode 6 lightsaber? Do we have any theories?
Oh,
I got a good one. He goes back to Obi-Wan's hut. We don't really know what happens to Qui-Gon's lightsaber, correct? In canon. Okay, Obi-Wan keeps it, and he uses Qui-Gon's crystal.
Well, canonically, I think it was kept in the archives.
So
Right.
maybe Obi-Wan would have grabbed it?
it was never added to the arch, his crystal?
I don't know.
I don't know. I would say that, but Obi-Wan's got this like dedication to being the perfect Jedi that he I don't think he would have kept his master's saber, but I mean Stellan did. Yeah, we don't have an answer. I have a theory that Luke found a nexus or a temple because I have this theory that because kyber crystals are attuned to the Force, they could manifest themselves basically anywhere there's a nexus, and there's some support to this through Rebels and how Ezra attains his.
Huh? It is a very popular theory that Obi-Wan had Qui-Gon's old lightsaber. I don't know. I don't remember where I read it, but I do believe that after he died and after his funeral, his lightsaber was kept in the Jedi archives. But what happens to it after Order 66, I don't know.
Yeah, and there's also the theory I actually just heard for the first time today that he's using the crystal from Hulik's lightsaber, the Rhodian Jedi that only appears in the book Weapon of the Jedi. I prefer. I want to believe that Luke has a green crystal because of himself, not because it's someone else handed him a green crystal. Because if that's the case, we have no idea what color lightsaber he would have, right?
Yeah,
Pretty much.
You know, so I would love it if that's just part of his journey, and we get that someday of him going through and trying to find these manuscripts or these Force sensitive people, and he hears that song. You know, he hears a crystal calling to him, and has to find it in an adventure.
Yeah, and taking into consideration like the lore from Ahsoka, I'm not sure if this is just because those were originally her crystals, but you can hear the song of the crystal from across the galaxy.
Across the galaxy, yeah.
yeah.
That is the last question. See if anyone else has any. There are no pressing questions that we can answer in the chat. So, with that said, we are out of time. Thank you to xcoregamerskillz and Luke from Podwan's podcast for coming onto the show to talk about the Force and everything else. This is a very, broad subject with a lot of interpretations, and it's always a great time to talk to people about the Force and how they see it. going to shouting out our channel members, of course. As always, we're going to start with our second page here because that's where I left it off. Sorry, guys. Thank you to Luke, Podwan's podcast, and Kenobi for in their Jedi Starfighter 2, Mabe in the Razor Crest, Star Wars Scholar, Mentally Ill Sith Lord in the TIE Defender, Star Wars Lawyer in the Lady Luck, Brooke Dazzler in the Mantis. And then we have St. Pat in the X-Wing, Casco Hitcho in the TIE Whisper, Grandmaster Bale, Harith Productions, DePaul in the Superstar Destroyer, Geordie Jedi, or Nerd Connor, the squadron leader for the U-Wing Squadron with Gray, Levi Bond in the Interceptor, Masa in the Y-Wings, xcoregamerskillz in the A-Wing, Cal4, Car2D2 in the Ghost, Brian with the bread, Brian with the beard, Brian with the beard bread, Brian with the bread beard in Boba Fett Starship, Choco and Arya in the Jedi Vector, and of course our reserve pilots, Johnsky, Julia Christine, and Sanatos 1138. Thank you guys so much for tuning in as well in the chat. Bane's Rule, Xanatos is here as well, Brooke, Robert Kenobi, Mabe is in the chat as well. Always a fun time to hang out with everyone and talk Star Wars. Choco, do you have any final thoughts?
Love y'all.
That'll do it. That is the end. On to the next one.
For light and for life.
We are all the Republic.
And may the Force be with you.